What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kuempel of Label Free Podcast. To live your best life, you must live label free. I actually am very, very excited. I have a special guest. His name is Messick. He does a lot of amazing things. He's a national house flipper. He has his own podcast called Profits Over Wages. You're a capital raising expert, a hard money lender as well. So Matt, how would you like me to address you?
Matt's good.
Yes, I like Matt better. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell the audience a little bit about your background and all these amazing things you do.
Yeah. So my background is I'm an entrepreneur, real estate investor. I've did a lot in the Chicago community as far as development and single family houses with gut rehabs and second floor additions. And then over the last year, I've expanded more nationwide. Last year, I flipped 50 houses in 19 states around the country.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's going really well. And then also I have a podcast where I interview successful entrepreneurs and business owners basically on their journey of kind of where they came from to where they are now. Because everyone sees someone that's like successful, they're like, well, of course that person is, because that's kind of just the person they are. But then you hear the stories of where they were, and everybody can kind of relate from where they came from, and just kind of, they didn't give up and they're persistent and persevered through different things to, get to where they are now. I've met a lot of really cool people and learned a lot from them.
I know, like I was telling you before we jumped on here, I was stalking you just like trolling your Instagram page. And I was like, wow, you have really met a lot of amazing people. Who is the one of your favorite person that you have met?
So probably the coolest story, there's a guy named Joe Land. So his ultimate dream was to be a professional baseball player, which he actually achieved his dream, and he got drafted by the Dodgers like in the 60s. And then he blew out his rotator cuff, which back then they didn't have like surgery for that. So it was a career-ending injury, which, kind of sucks because you'll get your dream and then you get it taken away from you. So then he started a business, and then that business that he started, he actually wasn't profitable for the first 7 years, which a lot of people, start businesses and they're like, oh, in the first 1 or 2 years they're not profitable, and they're like, this doesn't work, or they quit or whatever. And it's like, so to last that long and keep going forward. Long story short, in his 25th year, he sold his business for over $200 million. It was the 8th largest refrigerated trucking company in North America. And then basically he's been retired.
What was the name of it? What was the name of the trucking company?
I don't know. He didn't share it, or I don't know if he wanted to or could.
Oh, okay.
But basically, yeah, it was built over like 25 years, and then he's been, retired since 1993. Now he kind of dabbles in investments and whatnot. But that was like just like a really cool story of like, don't let one thing get you down, and then don't just give up after you put in a little bit of work, and just kind of keep fighting through it. And success is on the other side of failures.
I agree with that. I'm an entrepreneur myself. So I think I probably had my first real job since I was 16 after my husband passed away. We had 5 businesses together. We had one real large manufacturing business. We did about 20 million in sales, and we had 150 employees. And actually before he passed, and I was actually kind of forced out of the business. After he passed, I doubled the size of the company with one contract, but we also had an installation arm, and we had several real estate holding companies. And and then after that, I had to start over, and I've had several businesses here in the last couple of years. And I don't look at them, and they didn't really take off. It was some really expensive lessons, but I don't look at them as failures. I mean, because I think entrepreneurs, we all have an inherent quality. And when you are an entrepreneur, you don't tend to give up. You know what I mean? So I'm still on my path, I do have I'm actually going back to work on Monday, surprisingly enough, but because I'm in tech sales for Career Builder, but like I still have all my different things that I do. And I love it. I think that it's something that, as an entrepreneur, you can relate that you have to have the certain qualities to do that.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the only way you can fail is if you quit, and if you never quit, you're never going to fail.
That's very true. That's very true. So what is one of the most favorite things that you do? So flipping 50 houses last year, that's a lot. So how did you manage all of that?
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. So before that, I was doing larger projects in Chicago, like, say $500,000 projects, but I would do 4 to 6 a year. But for me, what it was taking a long time, and the construction was a lot, and it's a lot to manage, and then sometimes it takes 12, 18
Sure.
or more months. So I completely kind of changed my business model, where to do smaller end properties, but do a lot in volume, and they're actually easier to, they're more predictable, right? So
Yeah.
like the normal, 80% of the people buy between like 100 and 250,000. That's kind
Right.
of where everyone's range is. So before I was more on the top of the market, so it'd take longer to sell, and you need to wait for that certain buyer. And on this other side, like what I learned, because started doing some projects, and they would sell like in literally like one day or like a week, they would go under contract. So then I'm like, the biggest thing, especially something like an industry that's industry like real estate that's been around so long,
Sure.
there's already like, success leaves clues, right? So it's something that the more you do, the easier it gets, because you're just replicating the same thing over and over again.
Right.
You just got to figure out what works, and the things that don't work, the mistakes you make, you don't do those again. So, we kind of started off slow, did a couple deals here and there, and then it was more just about, wow, this works, and we kind of just poured, gas on the fire and did a lot. And it was more, a lot of people look at a lot of different factors. Me, like, I'm a numbers person. My background is accounting.
Sure.
So, these are all like bank owned. So we would get lists from banks.
Yeah.
Properties are going to auction, and then we could make pre-auction offers on them. And so we would get like 10,000 property, like a list of 10,000 properties a week. And then actually we had hired some VAs, virtual assistants, which are really good to use to do specific tasks. And so I had them kind of narrow that list down to like the best 100 properties. And then basically I would go through them and kind of cherry pick. But what I would do, because these were all bought out of state, and most of them we bought blind, like never even going to the property. Now we actually have people drive by and check it out just to make sure the house is still there. So there's a couple instances where the house was like collapsed.
Oh no.
Another one where like the bricks on like two corners were just shifting, so the whole house was shifting. And we're like, okay, well, good thing we checked that out, But essentially, besides the rehab, there's like I can pretty much comp out a property anywhere in the country just looking at Redfin, Zillow, Realtor.com, sites like that.
Yeah.
And there's certain criteria to look pretty close to the property, with plus or minus 1 to 200 square feet, and some other things. And then obviously if you have 10 houses that all sold between 110 and 120, this one's probably going to sell between there, right?
Sure.
If you have 10 houses and they're at like 70, 100, 120, 170, it's all over the place. That's more of a risky deal to do.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'd kind of use that criteria to go through it. And then, like, being a flipper myself before of going through the whole rehab and everything, I know I'd buy properties anywhere from, usually like 50% of what the after repair value is, like the resale, once it's all fixed up. So if I knew if I could buy properties at 30 to 40% of that value, kind of pretty much regardless of what the rehab would be, that there would be, spread in that deal.
Okay.
Now it does make, if it's a gut rehab, then it's gonna be a lot more. So we try to stay away from houses that are like, let's say built before like 1950, because if you buy a house that's only 20 years old, I mean, even if it's like trash, most stuff you'll have to do is like paint, flooring, maybe kitchen and bathrooms. But the older it gets, you got to replace, if it has cloth wiring, you have to replace all that. If it doesn't even have HVAC, or if it has a old boiler system, you might have to upgrade that. And if it has galvanized pipes like plumbing, you're gonna have to upgrade those things. So it gets expensive, yeah. So kind of like, Chicago has really old housing stock. Like everything's like 1890 to 1920. So you have to do that with almost everything. And then even like 60% of the inventory is 2, 3, 4 flats. It's not even like single family, which single families are the easiest to resell because everybody, that's kind of everyone's like starter homes.
Right.
So basically by doing all this stuff that just I had access to here in Chicago, I learned of like how easy other type of deals are, that if I'm buying a 1980 house and it only needs 20,000 to fix up, and I can sell for 200,000 where all the buyers are at, instead of buying a 1900 house built in 1900 and putting like 250,000 into everything and adding a second floor, and then that taking 12 to 18 months to rehab and sit on the market for 6 months to sell. So like, I feel like a lot of other people, I know a lot of people who've done that, where they got into that and that didn't work for them, and they just quit, and they're like, wow, real estate's hard, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah,
And
that sounds like a nightmare. Sorry.
yeah, but no, I went in through it and I learned all that, and then I learned what I didn't want to do, and then I learned that I didn't want to do that, and then when I saw this kind of opportunity come up from a business partner that I met that started doing this on a small scale, was that, oh wow, that's like way better than what I was doing. This, which was super hard. This was like super easy for me, because if I went and I raised $500,000 to buy one house, but now you're telling me we could buy 5 houses with the same money, and it's a lot lower and it sells a lot quicker. Like we're in and out of our flips in 90 to 120 days.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I mean that's how we were able to do so many that quick, and it's lower end. It's kind of like that for sports fans, if before you go up in the batter's box, you swing with like 2 bats, or swing with the weight on your bat to like, and then when you go up there it's a lot easier to swing when the bat's lighter. So that's kind of what I feel like I've done over the past year.
That's really cool. How did you find? So I'm actually curious. I don't think I would ever do that because I'm a chick, and I'm not really into all that, and I would definitely learn the hard way. But how did you find people to come in and actually do the work on the homes for you?
Yeah, so we do a couple of different models with that. So some we just buy it because we know it's a great deal.
Sure.
Like as is, it'll be a lot less than what the market value is. So some, if it makes sense, or a lot of them we'll just buy and then resell to local investors. Okay. But then there's some that are like, they're so close to retail for someone moving in that need anywhere from 5 to 15,000 of work, where it's just like, well, let's just put the money in. And it's usually kind of like a ratio for every dollar we can put in. If we can get $2 to $3 back or more on the resale price, then it makes sense.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah. So what we found to work really good is, so first of all, like realtors, or well, not all realtors, but like say the ones that actually do a lot of business, they're professional and you can rely on them, which is kind of like the opposite of contractors, which is what the issue that I was having. So first what we do is we find a realtor. So we got to find someone to go by the house and check it out, right? And then, I mean, I'm pretty good at being like spot on like what the value is. We have a realtor go on in that's local in the area that knows the market, and have them give us their value of as is, and then what it would be, fixed up. And then it basically either confirms or deny like my thoughts. So if she comes in right on the money, what I was at, then we're like, okay, well, 2 people did the due diligence on this, and this is what the numbers are. So then we feel like even more confident that, okay, this is a great deal. And then obviously they come in to check it out, because what we say is, okay, we're buying this from the bank. We could actually put them as our buyer agent to represent us.
Okay.
So they get paid when we purchase it, and then we promise them the listing on the back end. Because right now we're not holding any of them, we're reselling all of them.
Yeah.
But then they're like promised the listing. And then what we've learned is, hey, this could use a little bit of work. It kind of started where they told us this needed a little bit of work. I'm like, okay, well, we sell for more. I'm like, okay, we'll do that. Maybe it just needs a new roof and nothing else. We've done a couple of those. So we just asked them, well, you're local in the area. You've been in business for a while. I see that you have, sales, like, well respected. Do you have any referrals or contractors for this or that? You go, yeah, I could help out. So then what we started doing is having the realtor manage a contractor, or a few small subs there to do the work. And then we actually pay them a project management fee on top of that to do that. So they're happy, because they usually got to go out and find, clients, right? And then they get paid once for that client, and then maybe they never see them again, or maybe they buy a house in 5 years, make it a second time. So for them, they get paid when we buy, they get paid when we sell. And then for some of them, or most of them now, they're getting paid to manage their projects. They're getting paid 3 times on each project.
That's amazing.
So there's like a realtor now in Connecticut. We've done 4 projects, so there's repeat business there. So she's got, who knows, like 10 checks.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So actually realtors are really wanting to, help us out, because they have this opportunity for that business, and it's working really well for us. And then, obviously we have, phone calls and Zoom calls and stuff. And, sometimes I go to the property and do Facebook, FaceTime and whatnot. So we do kind of manage it from afar, but it's like we're managing somebody to manage other people.
Right.
And that way it helps us leverage, and that's how we're able to do, so many deals at once.
That is amazing. So how has this year with COVID, how has that impacted? I mean, I'm assuming you're still doing that now. Are you not?
Yeah, we're still doing it. We're being more cautious as far as like buying price and who we work with and whatnot. So we slowed down a little bit, but essentially we're kind of playing the waiting game, because like what's going to happen right now, it's unfortunate for a lot of people. And I wasn't necessarily in favor of, all the decisions that have been made. But what's going to happen for, real estate investors, and kind of specifically where we're positioned, is that there's going to be a lot of foreclosures and more REOs, which is basically we've already kind of entrenched ourselves in that niche of the industry. So it's just going to be more opportunity for us.
Oh,
So I even got an email yesterday that said of all the people that, you know, put their mortgages into forbearance, which was just like, okay, well, we can't pay right now. Can we get 3 months not to pay, and then we'll start paying again, right? So it's been 3 or 4 months now. Of all that, only 35% have started repaying, and now the other 65% are starting to default on, you know, now that their mortgages are due.
Sure.
So there's been some rumblings. You know, I kind of follow a lot of industry leaders nationwide, and a lot of people are saying this is actually going to be worse than the '08 crash, as far as the amount of like opportunity for real estate investors and houses that are going to be out there, which is, you know, is unfortunate for the everyday person because everyone's lost their jobs, and they're going to end up losing their houses and whatnot. You know, hopefully there's something out there where the banks work with the homeowners and help restructure their loans or do loan modifications. But, you know, for those who don't, or it doesn't work out or whatever, so for those who can't recover, for my part in the industry, there's going to be a lot, a big windfall of properties coming. So
you'll have a lot of opportunity there. I mean, it is unfortunate, but I guess, you know, I mean, it'll be good for you and your partner. Yeah, I was actually really excited to meet you. And when I saw everything you did, I'm like, you would be a great candidate to have on my podcast because you do so many things. So is that like your main business that you do, but you also do like the capital and hard?
Yeah. So I do that now. So I basically all the deals. So I'm at like 80 transactions now for real estate investment in my whatever 5 or 6 year career. So now people come to me and ask me for my help. And well, first of all, so all those transactions, I've raised 100% of the capital to buy all those deals. So a lot of people buy cash,
sure,
and then they wait till they get more money and they buy the next one. And yeah, you can do that, but that, you know, you move really slow doing that.
Yeah.
You got to wait to, even if I started with $1 million, right? On my old deals, I could buy 2 at a time, and then I'd have to wait 2 years to get another one.
Sure.
And on my current size deals, you know, maybe I could buy, I don't know, 7 or 8,
sure,
and then I'd have to wait to buy more. But by, you know, leveraging other people's money and then also paying them like a really fair interest rate, which is better than what they're getting in the stock market. And, you know, obviously the stock market's like volatile, especially like right now, it goes up and down. Like, you know, for this, they have their, they lend on real estate, they have a tangible asset, you know, they get a promissory note and a mortgage, it's secured. It's, you know, it's not going anywhere. Even if it burned down or anything, they're all insured. You get insurance payout. There's actually normally more than what the property's worth itself.
Okay.
So people are very secured investments, and then we pay them double-digit returns. And then for us, we're able to leverage those funds and buy, you know, whatever property that, you know, we deem fit that, you know, is profitable.
So you're out there networking a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was before COVID, but yeah. I mean, I do like, you know, I probably
that's like how we met, really, because we're in the networking scene. Yeah.
I went to like, I mean, I'm going to like, you know, 1 to 2, sometimes 3 networking events every week for like the past, you know, 3 or 4 years.
That's a job. That's a job in itself. Okay.
Yeah.
When I started doing those, so I started going to Tony and Greg's networking event, and I've gone to some other things. I was doing a big charity event against human trafficking, so I wanted to be out there promoting it and just trying to get people to attend and just support the cause. I'm telling you, like, I was working, you know, I'm a big, you know, I work out, which I'm sure you know, and it's like, that was a lot of work. So like, if you're going to 2 to 3 a week, oh my gosh, you must be burning at both ends.
Well, I used to host 3 a month. So we would do the, I don't know if you're familiar with Robert Kiyosaki and Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's kind of like the book that changed my life. Like after I read it, it was like about, it's really good. It's, we changed a lot of people's lives and a lot of people in real estate investing. So it's like how people, you know, working for yourself as opposed to working for others, and then how you can leverage that and build that, and you know, in businesses and you know, do investments. You know, real estate was part of that. So after I read that, well, so he made a game called Cash Flow, and they call it like Monopoly on steroids.
Oh, cool.
And it really helps. You know, a lot of people I'm gonna say, hey, go read this book. A lot of people aren't gonna read it. A lot of people don't read, right? Right. Everyone's played board games before, and that's, you know, funner. So like, so we did a cash flow club for the last 3 years. Once a month we would hold it, and we would have anywhere from like 8 to like 30 people show up and have 3 games going at once. And what it is, it basically like kind of opens up your mind on how to do things differently.
Sure.
It gives you a way to practice, purchasing investments and being able to analyze them, before going out in the real world and doing it and not knowing how to do it or lose money.
So you were hosting the events like that and having that and doing that game?
Yeah, for the last 3 years, every
month.
month.
Oh my gosh. So are you going to do it again? I want to come.
Yeah, if things open back up, I guess we better start it.
Well, eventually they're going to have to open back up. I personally think it's going to be after the election, but who knows what's going to happen. I'm definitely
do home games with people. Do home games with 10 people.
Well, I'm in. Let's do it. I actually have a wine tasting, and Alton and Katrina.
Yeah.
So I have a wine tasting for like 12 people. So it's going to be those two. I have some other spots to fill, so maybe you can you can come along and do the game with us.
Oh,
you have to read the book first.
You don't have to. So you can do both, but that's what the game was built as an alternate to the book. So people who don't want to read or don't like to read, you play the game, and then you realize how it works.
Okay.
It's kind of like hard to explain to somebody because you got to go through the mindset shift in the game. But it's just kind of Monopoly on steroids, but you get it after. You actually learn more from the other people playing than you do from yourself. And then actually, even though I've played 100 times now, every time I play, I learn something from somebody else, even if they're never played before, they're inexperienced. So everybody approaches things differently. So it's you learn something new every time. So it's really cool.
I'm totally in. So I want to play this game because I like to. Well, I'm a very open-minded person. So anytime I can learn something new, I'm all about it, especially if it's going to help me. So I was a successful entrepreneur before. So after my husband passed and I got into fashion design, I did not really have a good business plan. And I went way too hard in, and I probably spent about $200,000 and I made 20, but that was my fault. What's that?
It happens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I look at it, it was hard when I finally closed that side of my business. That was a hard pill to swallow. But then I looked at it I didn't go to school for fashion design. I actually went for accounting and business, which, hello, but fashion is a very different type of business. It really is. And I was I looked at it I learned some very valuable lessons, and I love clothes. I'm always dressing up, I'm always wearing something fabulous. And if I ever did get back into it, I would go a little bit more strategic, and I would be my first collection was 30 pieces. It cost me $30,000, and I wouldn't do that again. Yeah. I would not do that.
Well, what would you say the number one mistake that you made is, and how would you do it differently?
Okay, that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. So my number one mistake is that I hired basically a fashion design company that managed all aspects. Whereas I found out later that I could have done that workout myself, which would have cost me a quarter of what I paid. I also learned that I did too many pieces at once. So as a new designer and just starting out and creating a name and a brand for myself, I should have just started off with a couple pieces. And then I also needed to find out what my target market was, my target customer. So I thought, oh yeah, I've got pieces for everybody, but no, that's not really how it works. And I'm sure that really in any business, you have to figure out who your target customer is.
Yeah.
And especially for women and clothing, it's a little bit more, it's almost more of a psychological, and what kind of pieces this type of person, this type of woman would wear. So yeah, now I have the resources on how to get patterns made, where I would get them manufactured, where I can buy my fabric instead of going through a third party to do all that for me. And then I would only do a couple pieces, and I would figure out who my demographic was. So yeah, I learned some very valuable lessons. Would I do it again? Sure. If I build up my own personal brand enough and to get all those things figured out, I would totally do it again. But yeah, I went too hard, too fast. I was yeah, I know it all. I'm going to do this. It was fun. And it was, I love that whole creative process, obviously, but yeah.
That's the big thing about entrepreneurs is that patience, because everyone wants to be rich overnight or they want it to work now. But yeah, so you move too quick. It's building a foundation, make sure that works, and build a little bit above.
Yeah.
Like what I did over the last year just kind of seems insane for anybody, but I wouldn't have been able to do what I did unless I did the last 5 years, like slowly, and kind of took those knocks and whatnot. But that's the coolest thing, because if you stick with what you're doing, or just business building, you take what you've learned from the past, apply it to your future businesses, and then they work a lot better. Because a lot of people, what it is, it's a difference from working for somebody and working for yourself.
Yes.
When you start a new business, it's actually 80% of like knowing how to run a business, and only 20% of that particular industry or that business. And a lot of that is just when you get in that business, you learn about that industry, and then you meet people, you network with industry leaders and kind of learn off them for what works. And you got to kind of learn the ratios and basically the specifics to that industry.
Sure.
So like once you kind of have one successful business, you see all these people in like Shark Tank, they have 20, 50, 100 businesses. It's because they've already learned that success model. And they just apply it to everywhere they go. And then sometimes something happens in one of their businesses that they learn, and they can apply it to the other ones that they already have, and it improves them. So a lot of people go into it, and then they get those knocks, and then they quit or go back and this or that. But there's it's like building blocks. You just build on the last one over and over, and then you keep going up the ladder.
Yeah. I still have my skincare line, which is, it's kind of died down because of COVID. All my spas are closed, but that I was fairly successful in, and I still have it, and now I have my podcast. So speaking of podcasts, let's switch gears a little bit. What made you start yours? You've actually had some really great guests on your show.
Yeah. So it was me and my business partner at the time. He was we listened to Joe Rogan podcast. So he was doing a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
I was listening to the Bigger Pockets podcast, which is like, it's like Facebook for real estate investing.
Okay.
So they had a really good podcast. And then we're like, well, let's start our own. And a lot of it too was everywhere I've gone in my industry, I've always been like one of the youngest people around, because, to buy real estate, you need money, right? So a lot of people think they need their own money. So like I would go to an event and I'd be like 25. Everyone else there is like 40s, 50s, 60s and stuff like that. So we're like, okay, well, we got to like do this business. We don't have any money. Who's going to give us money? We got to start building. So we focus on credibility, right?
Sure.
So credibility was, well, let's learn as much as we can about everything and go all these networking events, learn from other people. Because then if we don't have the experience, at least when we talk, we can sound intellectual and know what we're talking about and everything. And that'll build trust. And then the other thing was, if we get this podcast, if we start a podcast, we can start interviewing people from, that we met from networking. And then it wasn't just like, okay, let's interview our friends, right? It was like, we literally came up with a list of the top 50 people in Chicago in our industry. So it's kind of like a hit list, or like, our interview list of like, oh, let's go after these, so some of them we knew and some of them we didn't, but we knew we wanted to get them interviewed. So we went to the people that were really successful that we at least had met a few times and just started building that. And we kind of came out of nowhere. And then other people saw that, oh, wow, you got some really good like guests that they respect. So like choosing like really good guests, the other guys saw that and it built credibility off the bat. So now if I went to someone, I said, oh, I have this deal. Here's what the profit margins are. Here's what we're looking at, whatnot.
Yeah.
And then I'd also be like, have a link to my podcast on there. Because some people you don't know as well. And you're just like, oh, and some people would ask for like a credibility packet or this or that. And they go on there, they see like, oh, 10 people, if we had only done, 5 or 10 flips at a time, we interviewed someone who did like 1,000 and someone else who owned a brokerage with like 200 agents and somebody who sold that company for 200 million. It's like, so it's called credibility by association.
Sure. Yeah.
So we built it for, first of all, to meet really cool people and learn from them, and because what other people do is like, and I get requests all the time, like, oh, let's, can I take you out for lunch, or can we do this or that, or a phone call? And sometimes you're too busy, you don't want to do that. So, it's more of like those people giving back. But why don't you, instead of asking for value, why don't you give it first? So when you ask someone to be like, hey, you want to be on a podcast? So free exposure, people feel good because, oh, like me, like, everyone likes to be like, talked up or whatnot. And then so instead of asking someone for an hour at lunch, we ask them, let us in, you want to get interviewed for an hour. So they'll do that. We got to meet them. We got those people in our Rolodex. We got them to help us build our credibility on our site, to go out and, to more establish ourselves in the industry. and then just kind of the knowledge we got from them. So there
You
was
are
like
amazing. You are actually really amazing. I'm glad that thank you so much for agreeing to be on my podcast. But I'm just like, I am like in awe of you. You are actually, you've done some really cool things. I love it.
thanks.
I love
I
it.
appreciate it.
Well, I'm going to start wrapping things up here. So is there anything else that you would like to share, or any last words of advice that you'd like to leave with the audience, or for my audience?
So yeah, one thing I would say, so anytime I meet someone like very, very successful or famous or celebrities, networking events, I just bump into a bunch of different people. I always just ask them one question, and I say, what's the number one piece of advice you'd give to an entrepreneur or business owner first starting off? And by far, like 90% of the time, what the response is, get a mentor. So start off, find someone. A lot of people they try to break free of where they are, and they listen to their friends and family, people who aren't doing what they want to do. Yeah. And it's like that crab mentality. Like a crab, if you're boiling a bunch of crabs in a pot and one tries to crawl out, all the other crabs pull them back in the pot. They never get out. Whereas if one went to crawl out and others helped them and everyone helped them, they would all get out of the pot, right?
Yeah.
So they basically say, don't ask opinion from people that haven't done what you did.
Sure.
What you want to do, seek advice from counsel of people that you want to do. So whatever you want to do or however you want to be successful in the world, go find someone that's done exactly what you want to do and literally just go work for them for free.
Yeah.
Just say, hey, what can I do for you? And a lot of people are like, oh, I got to get paid for it. If you go start a business, even like how you were saying, you're not getting paid for an amount of years anyways. You're going to be working for free anyways.
Yeah.
You start a business on your own because it takes a while to become profitable. So if you're doing that, go work for someone else for free, learn everything from them. And after a few years, you can go start off on your own and they'll help you and share the resources with you to do that. Because a lot of people would love to mentor people, especially if they're getting free work out of them or this or that. So that's kind of my biggest piece of advice that I would give.
I love it. That's amazing. Well, I hope that you will come back on again. So do you have any plans for your podcast coming up?
Yeah, so we did have a couple guests that we recorded before COVID. As things are going to kind of start opening now, we had some that we're looking to interview because we like to do ours more in person because we feel like it's more personable. You get to meet the person and make connections and whatnot. So we're going to be starting that up again here in the next month or two. We have some guests on deck for that.
I'm definitely putting all your links. I mean, so if there's any other links you'd like me to share, please let me know. I'll be putting in the description of the episode. But I'm excited to see your new episodes that you come out with. So you've got a fan. I'm following you on YouTube now. So yeah, I can't wait to see what you come up with. And I'm sure I'll be seeing you soon though. We'll be hanging out.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Matt. I really appreciate it. Thank you everyone for your support. This is your host, Deanna Kuempel with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share. And I will be seeing you soon.